I don't think this is really an issue now. The reason I don't is that I think Evolve was just too early in the hyper focus on microtransactions and season passes. This is par for the course these days. The first article is talking about Evolve from Turtle Rock Studios, which was released back in about 2014. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is that at the time of the recording, Back 4 Blood, which is their latest game, has just released an open beta, and last week it was in closed beta. And for a lot of people, there's a lot of red flags appearing for this game. Now, to understand the red flags that are coming up, we do need to take a look back at Evolve. So, this first article was written by Shan Nawaz over at adamogaming.com. Shan writes, when Turtle Rock Studios Evolve was announced in 2014, audiences were clamouring to get their mitts on the monster/shooter hybrid. Marketed as an asymmetrical multiplayer game, one player assumes the control of a monster, while the other 4 players pilot hunters from a choice of 4 classes. The notion of tracking and hunting a player-controlled beast who grows stronger the longer it remains at large presented an interesting dynamic. Matches began with the beast on the back foot, but as it evolves, hence the name, the tables quickly turn and the hunters become the hunted. On paper, this sounded like an exceptionally inventive concept, with a fresh take on the multiplayer team-based genre, using alluring trailers to showcase the best bits. How did Evolve fail so catastrophically? Issues with the game became prevalent the very day it launched. Evolve was marketed and sold as a full-price game at around £50. Nothing unusual there. What made this particularly flagrant, though, was the insane amount of nonsensical DLC that was available from day one via the in-store marketplace. To put it into context, Evolve launched with almost £100 of paid DLC. When that brand spanking new game you've just bought tries to sell you double its worth in DLC, you know you're dealing with pure malice. What's worse is the sheer number of game editions, each offering more content depending on how much you're willing to shell out. With several editions, variants, pre-order bonuses on offer, the excitement among fans quickly dampened as Evolve's predatory nature became increasingly apparent. Admittedly, a lot of this content was purely cosmetic and non-essential, so we can give this a pass for now. The game launched with a pitiful amount of content for players to enjoy, with the 4v1 flashlight mode comprising the majority of the game. A single-player mode was included at launch, but defining this as a campaign mode would be incredibly generous. It was essentially the regular mode, with AI-controlled teammates. I'm not making this up. Compounding these issues was the pathetic amount of significant DLC. Excluding redundant skins for weapons and monsters, Evolve eventually released semi-worthwhile DLC in the form of new hunters and monsters. The impact of these new characters' cause was nothing short of catastrophic. The game soon took a pay-to-win stance, as even those who lacked any semblance of skill could buy this new DLC and dominate matches with hugely unbalanced characters. The game's notoriety has served as a lesson to developers to refrain from succumbing to greed. Admitting to their mistake, 2K did eventually concede an attempt to salvage the game by reverting to a free-to-pay model. Although this did restore some life to the asynchronous multiplayer game, it simply wasn't enough to jumpstart the franchise once more. So with a heavy heart, 2K finally pulled the plug, executing Evolve as unceremoniously as possible. Press F to pay respects. Now, in that last little point there that Shan brought up, I've gone blank. So regarding Shan's opinion there at the end of the article about serving as a lesson to developers for succumbing to greed, I don't think that's necessarily the case. So, to sum up, basically, there was this feeling amongst us when Evolve launched that a lot of content that was developed for the game was hidden behind DLC and season passes, etc. It felt as a bit egregious, and at the time, 2014, we're talking 6-7 years at this point, we hadn't really seen anything like that. Now, the reason red flags are waving for Back 4 Blood is that it's been, it's been announced that, there's all these various editions available. It's going to be season passes, there's going to be DLC cosmetics, and if you remember Evolve, the two are launching in very similar states. I don't think this is really an issue now. The reason I don't is that I think Evolve was just too early in the hyper focus on microtransactions and season passes. This is par for the course these days. When you look at games like Assassin's Creed, for example, they launch with multiple editions of games, as do most games at this point, especially your Call of Duties, anything that's hyper-focused around multiplayer. And Back 4 Blood being a multiplayer game, I'm honestly not surprised. Now, if this never came with the baggage of it coming from Turtle Rock, who have previously done Evolve, I don't think people would be making as big a deal as this, as we currently are. But again, players have been burnt once before, and players remember. We're getting to a place now in gaming where if a studio messes up, that's a lesson learnt. Let's look at the Cyberpunk and the CD Projekt Red situation. I can guarantee whatever their next game is in a few years from now, there will be a hyper focus on having them under a magnifying glass, watching everything they do. Because we've been burnt once before by Cyberpunk, we're not going to be burnt again. I wish we could say the same thing about other things in the industry, but you get my drift. Let's look at Hello Games. I'm sure eventually they will move on from No Man's Sky. And the next game that comes up, we will ask, will this launch in a similar state as No Man's Sky? I think ever since Assassin's Creed Unity, I think whenever Assassin's Creed game comes out, there is that eye of skepticism, even so many years after the fact. Will this launch in a satisfactory state? Gamers remember, and they always will, for better or worse. Now, personally, my red flag around Back 4 Blood is, at the time of recording, as I said earlier, it's in open beta at the moment. I downloaded it, played it, enjoyed it, but I didn't replay it. I didn't feel the need to go back and replay it. Now, whether that's because it's a lack of content in the beta itself is one thing. We will see how the main game pans out. Now, I'm a Game Pass subscriber, so I will be playing it day one regardless. But if I was on PlayStation, or if I wasn't subscribed to Game Pass, etc., I would maybe be holding off until I see how the game pans out at this point. And from what I'm a lot of us seeing on Twitter and Reddit, the sentiment's kind of there amongst most people that, this doesn't peg us as the game that's due to be replayed over and over. And the game's going to be encouraging that for something called supply lines. That's going to be your main sort of form of progression outside of just progressing through the campaigns. For me personally, another thing that Back 4 Blood's kind of got against it is Left 4 Dead, which the game has been compared to since Turtle Rock worked on the original 2 Left 4 Dead games. Left 4 Dead kind of had a tongue-in-cheek about it. It didn't use any specific guns, you just had machine gun, sniper, shotgun. And it also had that kind of B-movie vibe as well, to the point where you had credits roll at the end of each level. It didn't take itself too seriously. Whereas Back 4 Blood does take itself seriously. You don't just have assault rifle, shotgun. You've got your Call of Duty style types of assault rifle, shotgun, your M4 carbine, your AK-47. It's just smothered in sincerism. The game's design as well, it just kind of looks bland. One YouTuber I was watching actually just before I was recording there, and I can't remember his name, I'm so sorry. If anyone happens to watch this and know who I'm talking about, put it in the comments. But he said that if you removed the HUD from the game, you would not be able to tell what game this was. And that actually sparked a light bulb in my mind. You know what, he's fucking right. But yeah, at this point, I think we'll just wait and see how the game pans out at launch. However, I think we need to let go of the the season pass cosmetic angle at this point for this game. I'm not saying as an industry at large we should necessarily succumb to the fact that this is a given. I don't necessarily think it should be a given, but I don't think this should be the main driving point at the moment, because again, at this time anyway, it's all going to be cosmetic. But again, that's what Evolve was like at launch.